Welcome to the Coventry and Warwickshire Green Business Programme podcast. Subscribe now for more episodes. If you're not doing this as a business, I guarantee that your competitors will be. Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Green Business Podcast. I'm Jonathan Howell, Business Energy Advisor at Coventry City Council, and I'll be your host for today's session. Now, as many of you know out there, I work for the Decarbonisation Net Zero programme, and our main objective is to help businesses in the West Midlands and Warwickshire areas reduce their energy use, and we do this by offering free energy audits to SME businesses, and we also have grant funding available to help support those energy reduction projects, such as insulation, heating improvements, insulation, process improvements and solar PV, to name but a few. Now, for our last few episodes, we went a bit wider and we discussed topics from a much broader sustainability perspective, and these included mining, water scarcity and drones. So if that sounds of interest, then go back onto our podcast site and have a quick listen. They're all very interesting. But for this episode, we're going to go very much back to basics, and we're going to bring you detail on one of the key aspects of our programme, energy audits. So for today's session, we're going to discuss what an energy audit entails and what benefits it will bring your business, what recommendations the energy audit will typically flag, how much efficiency gains can be made as a measurable, and then finally, how the grant aspect of the programme works. Now, as an energy advisor myself, I'm going to contribute partly to today's discussion, but to help me further, I'd like to introduce today's special guest, industry expert and all-round general nice guy, Nersi from Enviro. Nersi, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, John.
Thanks for joining today. So just to kick off for our first question, could you give us a bit of background to you and also your role at Enviro, please?
My name is Nersi Salehi. I'm the managing director of Enviro Limited. Enviro is a firm of energy engineers and scientists working with the businesses, energy intensive businesses, manufacturing sector in particular, and high energy users who can benefit from the services that Enviro can offer. Now, these services range from developing low carbon process optimization strategy to developing the net zero and carbon reduction plans and the strategy for decarbonization in general.
Okay. So whereabouts are you based and how long have you been operating for, could I ask?
We are operating from our offices in Rugby, but we do cover the whole of the UK. We have got some clients as a result of, obviously, they are part of group of companies. We also support some entities in Europe, in Sweden and France.
Wow. Okay. So just to set the context then for our audience, in terms of the Decarbonisation Net Zero programme, what areas do you cover for that? Because for our audience, if you're interested, me as an advisor at Coventry Council, I cover Coventry and Warwickshire areas. What areas would you cover within our current programme, Nersi?
Within our current program, Enviro is delivering quite a large conurbation area. We deliver to the companies. I think it would be appropriate to mention that there are two groups of companies in this program. One group is considered as a standard audit, and the second group would be energy intensive audits. Yes. The standard audits we deliver to the whole of the Black Country, Worcestershire, Shropshire and Herefordshire area, as well as Staffordshire area. So we cover what we call the greater West Midlands area, leaving Coventry and Warwickshire to obviously Coventry City, your team. And I think our partners, Aston University, delivers the program in the Birmingham and Solihull area. However, this is energy sort of not energy intensive, so let's call them standard audits. There are organizations of all sizes. If they are registered on the Companies House, so they are a UK company, UK-owned company, and they have a certain amount of energy consumption, and by that, £1,000 plus of energy bill annually, they can participate in the program. However, the energy-intensive companies are those that use 0.75 gigawatt hours or 750,000 kilowatt hours of power, gas, electricity, or any other fuel, where they can actually sort of have access to what we call deeper dive, up to 6 days of expert support and energy engineering, where they can actually benefit from a sort of much more holistic approach towards looking at the energy consumption and processes and develop the process optimization strategy with focus on energy efficiency. Those organizations, we cover them throughout what we call the Greater West Midlands area. That is all of the West Midlands Combined Authority area, as well as Worcestershire, Herefordshire, Shropshire, Staffordshire, and Warwickshire.
Good answer. Thanks. So just for our audience, and if you've obviously listened to the answer in detail, we cover a very, very large area. So if your business is around that area, do get in touch. We can obviously look to help you. And just to clarify what Nersi was saying about the high intensity and the standard audits, there's different types of audit we can provide depending on your energy use, basically. As a definition, a high intensity audit would be more detailed and have more recommendations. A standard audit is what I would offer, and that's for those sort of businesses that use a certain amount of energy or less. And we tend to recommend similar things, but a high intensity audit as a rule would possibly focus more on manufacturing, Nersi. I think I'm right in that assumption.
That's right.
And it's looking for those process improvements rather than more fabric improvements as a general rule. But I think you can probably see from Nersi's answer and my answer, there's a wide breadth of expertise that myself and Nersi can offer you here. So do get in touch and we can triage you to the right location, basically. So good answer and a good starter for the actual conversation, Nersi. So thank you. So just moving on to the audit bit then, basically. So what I'd like to just quickly talk through now is what a business could expect from an audit, basically. So when you're on site doing your audit, what sort of improvements are you generally looking for in the main? What sort of general things do you tend to look for as a starter? Or is that too wide a question?
It is a wide question, but no, that's fine. It gives me a start for sort of sketching out what actually a site review actually includes. We always ask companies before we attend site whether they have access to the half-hourly data for electricity. Usually the half-hourly data is available for electricity. In some cases, companies do have half-hourly data for gas as well. So that helps a great deal for us to actually do the early assessment of the pattern of energy consumption, and before we attend site, to identify areas of systemic inefficiencies, areas of energy consumption over and above what one would expect, or areas of consumption that could be out of production period. We then use the data at the first review meeting to discuss in depth what the organization processes are, what they do, who the clients are, how they operate, how, hours of production, shift pattern, and how they actually use energy to add value to whatever they do. That process is having the data available at that meeting, which is actually specific to their own site, helps a great deal to engage the organizations effectively as to what the program is about, what we are actually trying to achieve, and how we are trying to actually develop a low carbon process optimization strategy for the organizations, which they can then actually access up to £100,000 of funding in some cases for the deployment of what is actually in our report. So in a sense, our reports are passport to access up to £100,000 of funding at 50% of level of public sector intervention. So on £200,000 of capital investment, organizations could receive up to £100,000 of funding. So this program is a very generous program, which can provide them not only with the knowledge and expertise that is needed to put together and develop confidence of how investment can save them significant amount of money, but then provide them with the support to apply for the funding, to be able to put those measures that are identified in the report in their operation with support from the government.
Yeah, understood. I will give a bit more of an explanation into the grant process towards the end of the conversation. But just to clarify for our audience, my time or our time is free. So the audit process is all supplied free of charge. And the grant element, it's a grant. It's not a loan. There's nothing to pay back. If you apply successfully, you will get up to 50% towards your project that myself and Nersi will identify. Brilliant. So just to give our audience a bit of a flavour of, and I said I was going to get involved a bit in the discussion. So from my end of things, when I do an audit, I will do what Nersi's done. I would normally ask for billing information. Because I deal with the more standard sort of audits, I tend to sometimes not get the half-hourly data. I tend to get physical paper bills, which take a while to go through, but I would always ask for those. I'll always ask for those before I go in, because again, as Nersi has said, that gives us an idea of how much energy is being used on site, basically. So I know before I get to site what to expect and sort of what recommendations I can make. For me, because I focus on the standard audits, as I said before, I'm looking for not only the process improvements that Nersi's gone through, but also the fabric improvements, as I would call it. So I tend to look for things such as improved insulation, improved heating, solar panels, glazing, those kind of things that can improve the building fabric. That's what I tend to look for in the main. And very often a business would probably know this because they know their site very, very well. So they know where improvements can be made. But I would look to demonstrate to a business, if they were to improve their lighting or if they were to improve their insulation, I can show them what they would save per annum for each of those recommendations moving forward and supply it in a nice report so the business can decide. If I make it 5 or 6 recommendations, the business can decide business critical, which ones are more important, which ones will give us the quickest payback and the most return on investment. And then we can look to take those ones that are identified through to the grant, basically. So that's how I work. The similarities there, obviously, between myself and Nersi. But just to clarify, Nersi would tend to get involved with the bigger, more intensive manufacturing people. But essentially, the methodology is the same. On that word, then, that phrase I've used, what methodology would you use within your report, Nersi? Because I tend to use and draw on Carbon Trust methodology. And for our audience, Carbon Trust are very good. They're an independent carbon organisation. They give us methodology of percentage gains for certain things. So I know if I'm going to put glazing into a building or better insulation, I know from their guidance what the savings will be. Just out of interest, what methodology do you tend to apply for your audits and your reporting? Is it your own or is it Carbon Trust or a bit of both?
Well, we do use Carbon Trust because they have become a standard for
yes, that's good to hear.
Creating
I'm doing it right. That's good.
No, it's a benchmark. However, as you rightly said, because ProEnviro delivers to sort of more of a larger entities, companies, manufacturing companies in particular, we do apply also the ESOS framework, that's Energy Savings Opportunities Scheme, which is for the sort of non-SME manufacturing operation. But the principles apply. It is about energy audits, which includes reviews of the processes, the sites, the activities for the manufacturing processes, how they use ancillary equipment such as compressors, heating, to the building management or building conditioning systems, air conditioning, etc., as well as processes. So we look very in details in processes. Such a Carbon Trust does not cover all areas of manufacturing because we deal with the energy intensive sector. So they are foundries and forges and chemical manufacturing operations or plastics sector. We have through years of experience. ProEnviro has been operating since 1994. So it's our 30th year of offering energy engineering and support to the energy intensive sector of the UK economy. So we have sort of quite in-depth standards that have been developed actually in-house that we apply for improving the efficiency or benchmarking the company's activities against a very rigorous set of standards that have been developed. We conduct always at the start of the reviews what we call the benchmark against the requirement of 50,001. So we do a gap analysis against the 50,001 standards to see where the organization is in their journey for being very energy efficient or have a systematic approach towards energy and management of energy.
Okay, fantastic. You've actually just answered my next question about the standards, which is fantastic. So I'll move on to my next point. Just going back to the way an audit is put together and the methodology, if anybody wants more detail on that, our programme and myself, we did a really good webinar back on the 18th of January 2024, where I spent about an hour and a half talking through this with examples in terms of what we're looking for and the process to follow and so on. So if you're really interested in this, and I say really interested, do go back onto our website. The link will be in our podcast description and have a look at that. It was basically an energy audit webinar we did on the 18th of January. So have a look if that's of interest. Loads of details there. But just moving back to the discussion then, Nersi, two loose questions, and you've actually already answered one of them briefly. How long does an audit take? And also, how long after the audit can the business expect to receive their report and recommendations? And I caveat that with, I know it's different depending on what kind of audit they have. But just to give us a bit of a time scale for our audience, what could they expect in terms of those, please?
For the what we call standard audits, the ones that you mentioned earlier on, there is an allocation of 2 to maximum of 3 days of consultant support. So we actually, as you rightly said, look at from the fabric of the building to processes that actually are used on any of the participants' sites. And from the review, report is produced, and that report then through a kind of we call it workshop, the content of report is shared with the participating company. So, and answering your question, how long it takes to put all of this together, due to the fact that we are dealing the DESNZ, Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, is the sponsor for this program, and they are very keen to collect as much data from the program as possible. And they have actually they would like the program to target up to 4,000 organizations within the greater conurbation area I sketched out at the start of my talk. And 4,000, such a large number. So to make sure that we are a scary number, we are actually trying our best to actually get the report out within 10 days from the review time. But sometimes I must admit, due to the numbers, it might go as long as 2 weeks. But we try our best to get this report out as quickly as possible, because we are mindful of the fact that the organizations would want to access funding. If there are opportunities there, then they can actually go to the second phase of the program, which is actually applying for the funds to deploy the measures that have been identified within the program. So the sooner we can actually provide them with that support, the quicker they can slash the cost of energy consumption on site and deploy the measures that have been identified. However, for the energy intensive operations, then that we are dealing with a different beast. The days, you're talking about 5 days of support, and because majority of these operations are rather large, they are large foundries, large energy intensive operations such as plastics extruders and plastic molders. It is very important to actually sort of conduct the review and then sort of collect and collate the information as deeply as one can. Sort of it's important to get very close to how the organization actually conducts the manufacturing processes. Energy inefficiencies are usually as a result of two areas. One is technological issues that have not been deployed. Basic technological measure that you see everywhere nowadays is installation of LED lighting system. That is obviously significant. It reduces energy consumption by as much as 60 to 70% if you deploy the sensors technology as well. But when we are dealing with a foundry, then we are talking about how the organization actually manages the sand, how the organization optimizes the way they manufacture, and how they actually deploy energy for doing what they do, how they melt, how they pour. And then you're talking about sort of sector-specific best practices that we do actually look at and apply. So when we conduct a gap analysis, is conducting a gap analysis against all of these measures, all of these production issues that the organization conducts to make whatever they make. So it can take anything as much as 4 weeks to actually conduct the reviews, compile the data, and then go back with a series of, as you said, 5 to 7, 10 recommendations, which would be all very accurately assessed. Because with the energy intensive operations, again, they are done in two levels. Level or two, let's call phases. Phase one is where we actually conduct the review and come up with what we call a draft version of the report. And we go through that draft version of the report in a workshop and discuss it with the board and the engineering team on site to make sure that all measures that have been identified actually tick the boxes, their investment boxes, the company's strategic development, and then we select a number of the items that they would see would provide them with the quickest payback on the capital investment needed. Bearing in mind that we provide 50% of the cost of the deployment, then in the second phase of the program, we deploy up to 5 meters on the items that have been selected. They are temporary metering, electrical. We do not do gas. It's very important because the project would not offer measurement of gas. We don't want to break into pipe work or anything at this stage. But that would be actually included in the recommendations that they can get funding for at a later stage. But we can actually deploy up to 5 meters to actually improve the accuracy of the data and the return on investment. So we have the margin of error is reduced in a sense. And then they would have a report, a second draft report, which is completed report, which in our experience, it can take anything between 3 weeks and a month for the report to be produced and for creating the confidence and creating the necessary accuracy in the measured data to make sure, because you are talking about big ticket numbers, replacement of a furnace from gas to electric. You need to know exactly how that impacts not only the melting, but the whole of the process.
Great answer. And let me just pull a couple of points out of that, basically. So the first thing to mention is the grant funding, the grant pot we have is obviously first come, first served. So as you can see from the timescales Nersi's explained, the quicker you engage with us, the quicker we can get people on site to start that sort of investigative process for you and start the reporting, especially in terms of the high intensity. The second point is the explanation Nersi has given there for the high intensity audit, I think was superb. And you can see the level of expertise that we are offering your business for free here. So again, please engage. It's a really, really, really comprehensive bit of work that we'll do on your behalf. And then just coming back to my bit, which is the more standard audit, I echo what Nersi said. I would tend to set myself a timescale of, if I'm on site doing an audit, I'm there for 3 hours possibly. I want that report with the business within 2 weeks at the latest, really, to try and then identify which ones we then take to the grant element, and we can secure that money moving forward. So there's a lot of parallels there, and I think the explanation you gave for the high intensity was, again, it was superb. So thank you. So just moving to the next question, then, if that's okay. And this is something that for a bit of context, Nersi, my area, you'll know the area, I tend to cover Coventry, North Warwickshire, Bedworth, Nuneaton, Atherstone areas. I see a lot of manufacturing businesses in that area, basically. So the question is, do you see a lot of different sectors? And if so, do you take a different approach to them? Or is it just manufacturing that you tend to focus on, just as a point of interest?
It's important to note that for engaging or participating in the energy intensive part of this program, the companies need to be manufacturers. They need to be from what we call a standard industrial classification, SIC number 1,000 to 3,000. So it is actually very targeted for energy intensive sector of the UK economy within the conurbation area, which we described earlier. So they need to be manufacturers. However, all businesses can participate in the standard audit. It's very important to mention that. So there is a differentiation between the two. But going back to responding to your specific question, we do actually target energy intensive operation at the moment, because the program actually is looking for 330 energy intensive operations within the Greater West Midlands geographic area. And within that, there are quite a number of, because the area is known for its metalwork. So we do deal with quite a lot of forges, foundries, fabricators, as well as a lot of plastics operations, as well as chemical manufacturers, and there are commonalities amongst all of these industrial processes, but they are obviously very specific areas. So we have got over 30 consultants that can actually cover specific areas, someone with the in-depth knowledge of knowing how a foundry operates will go to a foundry, and the guys that are expert for addressing the issues with generation of compressed air and distribution of compressed air would go to site to follow on. So it is very specific to make sure that the recommendations that we make in the report are absolutely relevant, they are up to date, and they would actually help the organization to significantly reduce the energy consumption and costs.
Okay, good answer. And just to reassure our audience out there as well, obviously we've just talked about manufacturing and high intensity audits. If your business is in as an office environment or a leisure environment or a catering environment, we can still help with a standard audit. So don't be put off by us talking technicals. Get in touch. Standard audit. That's my bit, and obviously Nersi's.
That's right. I am sorry.
No. It's a good answer.
I am sorry because we deliver most of the sort of larger entities, so that's why my talk is probably a little bit more technical.
No criticism. Just to reassure people that perhaps might own, like I say, an office or a pub or a restaurant, get in touch. We'll check your eligibility, and we can still help you with the standard audit for that side of things as well. So good answer. Thank you. Okay, just moving on then to almost the final question, Nersi, and this is. Well, I'm hoping you can give our audience an idea of what's achievable, basically. So during your lengthy career, what's the most energy savings you have made on an annual basis to a business in terms of cost savings? Just to sort of see what's achievable, basically.
one of the major foundries in the Midlands area. They were participating in the program, and their energy consumption is just short of £6 million.
Wow, okay.
And we, during the first year of the operation, we have saved them £1.1 million.
Wow. Fantastic.
So you're talking about, significant sums of money, with the energy prices where they are, John, the issues of energy and energy efficiency are central to energy-intensive manufacturing operation. It sort of sits at the heart of the board discussion. We make sure that organizations have not had the in-house expertise, so they don't have in-house energy managers. They can use this program to actually sort of accelerate the deployment of how to develop strategies and then deploy those strategies. And in this particular case, have access to significant amount of funding for deployment of the measures that are identified to improve the competitiveness. I do believe that if we don't help organizations now to actually compete effectively with our European counterparts, then we would actually lose some of our historic manufacturing identities we have in the Black Country, in the West Midlands. And this program would help a great deal to support organizations to make sure that they will actually secure the future in the manufacturing.
It's a great answer. And as I always say to people, yes, we're there to help you with the headline numbers in terms of cost saving, but it's more than that, isn't it? It's about the carbon saving, which is very important. It's about continuing to win business in your supply chain. It's about becoming a greener business, retaining staff that are more in this demographic nowadays, more keen to look at things from a greener perspective. So it's more of a holistic approach to making your business leaner and greener without being too much of a cliche to it. Essentially.
Well, it is probably appropriate to just mention that even though the focus of this program, which is called Business Energy Advice Service, BEAS, abbreviated to BEAS, is to help organizations to become more energy efficient and develop low carbon process optimization strategies for the larger energy users. But it is very important to, as John just mentioned, to guide organizations that the UK PLC is committed. Actually, it's in the statutes. By 2050, we are going to be decarbonized, or we would have a net zero carbon status. If that is the case, organizations should actually use this great opportunity to actually learn more about how they can go down the route of decarbonization and what it means. This program actually helps a great deal for actually raising the awareness of the SME organization, because I think we mentioned it, but I want to reiterate, the program, BEAS program and the energy efficiency program focuses on the SME sector, SME operations. It is not for organizations which are non-SMEs. So it would help SME organization, this program, to actually learn more about how to become more energy efficient, which would automatically help them towards developing their scopes 1, 2, and 3, and develop their net zero carbon strategy sometime in the future.
Yeah, it's a good answer. And I'll use a phrase that I've used on these sessions before for people that are regular listeners. If you're not doing this as a business, I guarantee that your competitors will be. So you need to make sure that you are following the process and getting yourself ready for what is effectively the future. So great answer and great answers, Nersi. Thank you very much. I'm going to just wrap up now with a bit of an explanation for our audience about what to do next. Obviously, I hope that what we've just talked through is of interest to you and your business. So if you want to apply, there is a link in the podcast description which we'll flag for you. Get in touch via that link, and then it goes into our triage, and then we decide what team within our program it best sits. It could be me, it could be Nersi, depending on your sector, your consumption and your geographical location. We'll also then at that point discuss your eligibility to make sure that you do fit within the program parameters, and then we will then look to book in the on-site energy audit that we've already talked you through. Now, when that audit is done and you've had the report, and Nersi and I both explained the timescales behind that, we can then get you through to the grant application pretty quickly, basically. So just to clarify that again, the grants are available between £1,000 and £100,000 based on up to 50% intervention, which means effectively we will give you up to half, you help fund the other half. So it's very much worth getting involved, basically. And an important point to mention without complicating things too much, because I do get asked this a lot, you do not get the money up front, you get the money when the project has been completed, basically. So just to emphasize that to our audience, completed, because I do get asked that from time to time. So if you feel that's of interest and it may benefit your business, then again, please register with us via the link in the podcast description. I've already said this before, but we are here to help your business become leaner and greener and more sustainable. So register. Thanks for listening today. And you never know, you may see myself and Nersi on site at some point soon. Thanks for listening. I'm Jonathan Howell. Best of luck with your net zero journeys. And finally, a big thank you to Nersi for your time today. I found it really interesting and I hope our audience did too. Thank you, Nersi.
Thank you very much, John.